today. He'll be back tomorrow. At this time, I acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose territorial lands we are meeting on today. Adoption of the agenda. We'll have a seconder.
Second.
Any additions?
Oh, can we just talk about the date of next month's meeting, because I screwed up?
Okay, we can add, okay. Add that in at the 7 point.
You already have. So you always have an agenda item number 10,
It's just
next meeting.
Oh, next meeting,
Okay.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
change that, okay.
Because somebody made a mistake.
Okay, so that's the only thing, adoption of the amended. All in favor, thank you. Receipt of the minutes of March 5th, 2024, Castlegar District Recreation minutes have been received. Do we have a mover?
I'll move on.
A seconder? Any
That'd be
comments,
you.
submissions, anything? If not, all in favor? Thank you.
Yeah.
There's no delegation today. Staff reports, community engagement update. Over to you, Trish.
Perfect, thank you. Through the chair. So I just wanted to provide a verbal report. I was going to provide a written one, but I didn't want there to be any erroneous information out in the public until we kind of solidify our meeting schedule. But maybe just a bit of an update in the public forum is that we are planning our first levels of community engagement for basically the last full week of April and into early May, so approximately 2 weeks of meetings. So basically it's almost every night for those 2 weeks across the Area I, Area J, and City of Castlegar. So the only meetings that we're still confirming is whether to move the April 23rd meeting to May 9th. I assume everyone saw my correspondence about that. Andy, did you see that? Did you see that email? Okay. And it looked like, I didn't know if everyone was following emails along, but it looked like May 9th may be the preferred date, but just in brief conversation, there may be an opportunity to continue with April 23rd. Weren't sure how that worked with Area J in your alternate discussion?
No, she's with me.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're at Ready Grant, so.
And so Andy, so May 9th could work for you, Henny?
Only if my alternate can make it. I can't do a 6-hour meeting on May 9th. I can do the committee meeting on May 10th.
Yep.
But May 9th is out for me.
So it wouldn't be a 6-hour meeting. Those are just the windows that we book the halls. The actual meeting itself would only be.
Oh, good, because I thought you'd lost your mind.
I can't believe it took you this long to ask me
Tell us
that.
how you really feel.
I'm committed to 42 hours of public engagement, I think.
So it'd be like from 6 o'clock or is that?
Correct, yeah, you
6
may have
to
missed
8.
that fine print in my chart.
Oh,
But in the chart, it was saying that we blocked that amount of time so that we had time to set up, organize the time that then within that window would maybe work best for everyone, but probably 6 to 7:30 is, I think, kind of a standard time. But the only date that we had yet to confirm was to move April 23rd to May 9th. So it would only be an hour and a half, but then there would be a working group meeting on the 10th as well,
Which is
Yeah,
the
which
Friday.
which is the Friday.
yeah, okay, so knowing that, and phew, what a relief. 'Cause really, I thought,
I'm sorry, that was the
I thought it was cruel and unusual. But, so I'll tell you guys what's happening for me is my dad is coming from the 7th to the 11th for the first time in a decade. He will be 90 in September. So this, I need to spend some
Yeah.
time with him, but I'll give him a book and a beer and he'll be fine for an hour and a half.
So that's May 9th then?
Yeah,
You'll be
I
okay
can
on
do
May 9th?
May 9th. Yeah,
Okay.
with that he's old, I'll feed him early.
And then the working group meeting would be the 10th during the day.
Yeah.
Because Rob will be trying to travel back home.
That's fine.
So Andy, does the 9th work for you? Yes? Okay, so that would be I think it was Terry's hall was for that particular meeting. So, okay, I will confirm that at the end of
Okay, Maria?
the.
Maria has a question.
More just a comment. There's 3 of us from the city, and so I said it right off the beginning, is that I don't know if I can make all the meetings, my schedule is extremely busy usually. So there are some conflicts depending on what timeframes you pick in all those dates, like almost every single one of the days. But again, I recognize that there's 3 of us, and so I didn't wanna complicate my schedule, it becomes very challenging to try and get me a whole week for the evenings. So I will do my very best to be at least for periods of time at all of them, but I may not be able to make the whole thing. And after, I can kind of give you when I know my meetings are, and if any way they fit outside of those, but if not, don't. I don't want you guys to feel like you have to try and coordinate around, because there's 3 of us, right? So I know that at least there'll be people there that will get to hear, they can catch me up. I will do my very best to be
For
at
sure.
what I can. The 9th and 10th are fine,
I'll
actually,
bring
but
my
the
dad on the
Okay.
night.
22nd to the 29th or 25th, there was just, I've got stuff that week already,
Okay.
but I will let you know.
Because I will work on finalizing those logistics this week, and you'll watch for the update in my weekly update at the end of this week.
And
That works
you'll
for me.
send meeting invites for all those dates, and then, and
Correct.
just the times that we're supposed to be there.
Correct, yeah,
Yeah.
we won't block your calendar for
Yeah.
6 hours.
I figured it wasn't for not, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Well, I thought, well, I guess we're gonna do it, let's do it big.
Well, thank you for everyone's patience with that, it's been very challenging to try to coordinate, and we knew 2 weeks of continuous meetings in the evening for all of you was going to be very challenging, so thank you for that.
And can we have a bit of an update how it's gonna look for those meetings? Do you have that laid out now?
We're just finalizing those details,
Okay.
but so my next piece of my update for today is we got the first draft of what the panels will all look like, so once we kind of get those down more to sort of make sure that staff and the consultant kind of organize their thoughts on it and we are happy with it, we will circulate that as well. There will be an opportunity for obviously information sharing, there'll be a part, what I do know is that there'll be a part where people like Joe will talk a little bit about the service itself, what the project is, Rob will talk about his role, he will walk people through the panels of information that's there. There will be opportunities for people to engage where they're literally like providing comments, whether it's on boards or through workbooks, and or both at the meeting as well as following the meeting through a virtual
Yeah,
opportunity.
and we're
So-
there to listen and observe and not be part of the.
Correct,
Good.
correct, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think hearing from the public is really what we're after here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting talking to people in the community now. You know, some people are saying, do the cheapest thing possible, and others are, let's build a stadium with seats so we can have concerts, and really, I mean, if we're gonna do it right. I'm like,
Interesting.
okay, well, those are 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, right?
Right.
It'll be interesting, I look forward to it,
Perfect.
even if it is a bit of a time commitment,
Yeah.
not as bad as I initially.
Yeah, I
We're
cut that,
glad that we made it for you.
I cut that in a lot.
So,
Yeah, go ahead and.
so Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I just have a couple of comments. We're used to having our meetings kind of sort of 6:30 to 8, because then people coming from work and stuff get time to get home, have dinner, and then so 6:30 to 8 would be the preferred times. Like in our community, we kind of we had a meeting in Glade on the Glade Regional Park. It was that was well attended. So like we usually do 6:30 meetings. So if that in area I, that would work well for us. And then the other question I was asked this, like, is this where people walk in and walk around panels and stuff, or are we going to sit down and actually there won't be any opportunity like to ask questions at all, or how will that take place? I guess you're fleshing it out, but people are saying, well, will we have any opportunity? Like, is this, it's not a town hall. It's going to be more like this is, what are you thinking? And we should have some input into that, right?
So through the chair, so no, you're right, Andy, it's very much an opportunity for people to ask questions, and it's a little bit of everything you just described. So it's a bit of opportunity for people to mill about, look at some of the information boards that are there, then actually hear information directly from people like Joe and the consultant as to what the process is. There's an actual opportunity for them to literally write notes on boards or through workbooks, as well as ask questions during the community meetings, for sure. So it's a bit of everything.
So like a group question,
Just-
sorry.
Do you understand that, Andy? So it's not, go ahead, Andy? Oh, you froze.
Yeah, I think I need to I need to see it on paper to process it, right? But I think what I'm hearing, I've been talking up these meetings saying the commission is coming, like just, get ready for that. It's going to happen, towards the last couple of weeks in April, and people are looking, they're looking forward to the meetings. It's just a matter, they keep asking me, like, what kind of a meeting is this going to be? I says that's being fleshed out, and I guess this is our last meeting before we have those meetings, right? This is our last chance for any input on. Yeah, it's I think you said it's going to be a little bit of everything, and I think that's a good thing, right? And that there will be opportunity to do all kinds of stuff. But right now, I guess as a commissioner, I have no idea what that's going to look like, and I can't talk about anything because I don't want to say anything that is inaccurate.
Trish and then Henny.
So through the chair, Andy, what I'll do in my weekly email this week is I'll make sure that I've got some points to how those meetings will unfold in that email, so you'll have it in a written form. Does that help?
Yeah, and will we have a chance for feedback, or this will just be what it is and that's it?
So the goal through the chair is to have the meetings be consistent across all of the meetings that we're holding. But if you see something that you have an opinion on, certainly feel free to send it my way and we can see what that means. But by all means,
Okay.
I will try to outline it to the best that I can in my Friday update to you.
Henny?
Yeah, so I like, it's not on the agenda, but we had a meeting, and Trish, you were there in Glade, right?
Yes.
And you saw what happened there. And then it was kind of, I had to take over the meeting and guide it, otherwise it just keep going like that, right?
We're there to listen. Our role is gonna be there to listen, not do the meeting, not steer it. Yeah, not steer it. We're there to be listening and watching, hearing what, and it's gonna be staff and the consultants who are actually the main people who'll be doing all the talking.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I get that. What happens in I think Trish saw what happened at our meeting, and that was that basically people start venting right away, right? And they have very strong opinions. So what ended up happening is, so we weren't getting any work done,
Well,
or as much work done as we'd hoped to get. So then what happened is that we actually then brought it to, and we had 4 staff members there.
yeah. So I'm assuming that the consultant, that's gonna be them to steer the meeting, but Henny, you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, so my question was like, who's chairing it? Like, and will there be like a group question, feedback, whatever opportunity? Because, when you do that sort of open house format, you tend to have sort of small cluster discussions rather than the bigger, broader one. And I'm not saying one's better or worse, I'm just asking which way are we going?
So
Go
through,
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
so through the chair, so it's, the idea for people to mill about is to kind of gain some information off of the information boards, but then they are pulled together where Rob will give some information, Joe will give some information, and then that will open up a dialogue with people. So similar to what Andy's talking about with what happened in Glade, where the public there will have an opportunity to pose questions to the group. Yeah.
And
That is
sorry,
the question.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Who's,
Yeah, and then
who's chair, through the chair,
The
who's
consultant.
chair?
The consultant, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they'll be the ones responsible for taking the minutes, the notes, the getting people's thoughts down.
That's why we hired them.
Great.
Maria.
Okay.
Yes, some of my questions have been answered. The last one, it would be probably good for us as the politicians coming to the meetings, if you can actually send us an email with code of conduct of what you want from us. So that we're all on the same page. If the intent is that we're coming there just to listen, not to give opinions, not to get into debates with people, if that's what the intent is from the consultant, so they can gather the best information that they can, then I think that's wise for all of us to know that that's what our intent is. If it's not, if the consultant's intent is that he wants our feedback, then make sure we know that too. But I just wanna make sure, because I think some of the meetings sometimes get muddied when we don't know what our role is as politicians. So if you can make sure that if I'm hearing that the intent from the consultant is that we are coming just to listen and allowing you as staff and the consultant to do their work, and we're just there just to hear. But if that's not correct, then whatever, just make sure we all know.
Yeah.
So that could just be a few lines or
Yeah,
whatever,
for sure.
but yeah.
100%.
Joe, I saw
Yeah,
something.
I just think through the chair, it's a really good point. I think, Andy, like, the meeting last Thursday is very different than the intent of this. Because the meeting last Thursday was to specifically although it's like still about getting community feedback, it was about community feedbacks about a particular park plan. In this case, what we're trying to do is give general broad information and then gather from the community what their ideas are. So I'm not taking to them, here is the plan that we've received from your feedback. Did this reflect it correctly? That will be you're right, that will be a very different meeting, much like what you had to go through last Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think
Okay.
to Maria's point, hopefully it's not about where you're defending something.
Yeah,
You are gathering information to create that something.
yeah,
Definitely.
good, okay. Any other questions on that? If not, we're gonna be moving on to 6.2, financial plan summary report. Joe, that's you.
Thank you. Through the chair, just wanted to make sure that we had a summary of what is in the financial plan and what is not. In general, so there's just a broad overall statement about what the actual impact of the financial plan was that was passed at the board on March 21st. Feels like it was just yesterday. But it wasn't, it's actually just almost 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I guess, getting close to. Fundamentally, in fact, part of the financial plan, one of the, so in S222, it was there's a $320,187 increase in requisition. Generally, this is very similar to the update that was given in March and to the update previously that was in February. Again, a big piece of that is the capital carry forward for Glade Park, which is what the meeting was on Thursday. That project will be revisited based upon that feedback, and that will need to get brought back to commission.
Counts, yeah.
To have a discussion. Again, fundamentally, part of that is this year's funding of asset management. I'm not gonna go deep down into what the capital projects are. Of that 11.36%, 8.92% of that is really around the operational budget changes. I don't believe that we've gone through it, there's no real fundamental change in that.
No.
The one part that did change, so the very last bullet is, there was a shift, it didn't really change the financial plan too much, but in the financial plan, we had budgeted for a grant. to come forward. Just as, wouldn't you know it, the province, just as we were coming towards right before that budget meeting in March, the money came in. So it was no longer that we were expecting a grant, it's actually came in 2023, so it actually came forward as surplus. So just on the top of page 2, that 54,290 is primarily that switch. Okay, between we budgeted for a grant, we got it, that grant was removed, but it came forward as a surplus. Andy, is that's clear? Yeah, so that was about Pass Creek. And then it was just to make sure that we knew that of the options that staff presented for that commission could consider, there was no, it was not approved to fund a project through Community Works. So for S227, a little bit more nuance in here. So there's a $342,000 increase, and just so we know, if you were to go back to February, that presentation, at that point in time, that requisition increase was actually 47%. So it actually came, we actually did bring this one down quite a bit. So again, there's a smaller capital budget for this service, not as large. In particular, where there was a decrease, it was in the, from February to what was approved, was the increase in employee expenses. There's a number of changes that took place there. Number one being the changing how we were going to staff the fitness center, not the hours of the fitness center. So we're just choosing to maintain some of the hours as non-staff. And so staff is working on that piece. Again, the primary increase in S227 was a decrease in surplus. So it wasn't so much, there was a change in operational, but it was the fact that operations were subsidized by surplus in 2023. This is the one place where Commission did make the change, and again, that was to the fitness center. Is there any questions in that?
Andy, you have a question?
Yeah, I just, if Joe's finished the report, I'm just, with all the elections happening here, we may have provincial election, federal election, there's gonna be money flowing fairly freely. And is staff aware of any grant programs, infrastructure grant programs, or other things that may be coming down the pike, or that, like, are you hearing any noises from your colleagues across the province or the country that there's stuff coming that we could be the beneficiaries of to help ease not ease, but to support our infrastructure maintenance needs and things like that? Like, are you aware of anything? Because it's just too quiet right now on the grant front. But are we talking to our MP? Are we talking to our MLA? Like, are we, what's it looking like right now with the elections coming?
So through the chair, staff, I would never talk to a political person in the province, unless I was directed to by the board, quite frankly, on that one. But we're not hearing anything, and in fact, the most recent things that I've seen from our colleagues are about things like referendums that were passed where there was an expectation of grant funding and there being no grant funding to match those referendums, like in particular things like in Golden and even in Kelowna and other places like that. So in fact, what we're seeing is those projects that were relying on, especially large amounts of grant funding, those things are very much stalled right now and are actually grappling with the fact that what they may have gone for approval from the public, those new cost estimates that they're getting on those projects being dramatically higher than when they went to referendum in those processes. So if there's anything that I'm hearing, that's what I'm hearing. I am not hearing about anything new. I think in particular, what is very important from a regional district standpoint for grants, if there are grants that do come roll about, it's that asset management work. And so unfortunately, that delay in the regional district asset management project, which I think even for Craig and I was a little bit surprised how far behind we are on that. But we're looking at that work not coming in until the fall. If there's anything, is that senior levels of government are expecting us to manage our assets in a financially responsible way. And they're not looking to bail us out from that. And so that asset management project, why it's important is that hopefully it will show how we're gonna do that. So that makes then us eligible for grants. So you are actually in terms of recreation services, I think Craig and Trish would agree, this service is actually in a good place for those grants versus our other major recreation, because we have that actual plan that we've got inside our financial plan. It's there, it's concrete, it has capital projects planned out. I think all of those things bode well, where I would say in Creston and Nelson being the two other big services, we're not quite as developed in those services yet. So I would suggest if there was a grant, what we have as kind of our bedrock in this service is advantageous.
Yeah, so just supplemental, Chair,
go
if I
ahead.
may. Yeah, so basically, I know there's some major announcements, there was a major announcement this morning where the federal government announced $500 million to support mental health well-being for youth in Canada, which is a pretty big funding announcement. I anticipate that there will be something coming, be it global or whatever, that we may have to be shelf ready for, but the odds are is that they just may announce something that applies proportionately to everyone, just to help us out with certain things, and they'll determine what the priorities are. I think all levels of government recognize one of the biggest expenses for local government is recreation. And you'd think that both orders of government, federal and provincial, may do something, but again, because that's also health and well-being. But again, you never know what they're going to focus on. Obviously, they're focusing on housing, but they are focusing on health and well-being. So recreation is part of that. So I'm anticipating something, but you never know what's going to come. So I just wanted to check in to see, if you'd heard anything. So it's pretty clear. And they may do things like these places where referendums have passed and they didn't get their grant funding. There's a lot of disappointed folks out there, but they kind of tend to make good as the election approaches a little bit closer to the to voting day. So
Andy, I keep a pretty good lookout for all kinds of grants and that too, So I'm always looking for that, and nothing's being provincially or federally yet with recreation. But it is, the Liberal government slowly leaking out what their budget's gonna be, so if there's something there, I'll let everybody know, but you definitely would have to have asset management, a major project. And so, hopefully there's something that we can apply when we figure out from reimagining, there's some money there for a project. So that's what, I would go after.
I think there may be something, short term ready to, whatever, we'll see where it goes. I just thought it was worth discussing at the table, because you know what happens at election time. Like, it just all of a sudden the spigot gets turned on, and then we just have to be ready. So we do have a project that we could benefit from if they're handing out a little bit of money, and then looking at big money. That's a different.
We just have to be very
different thing.
strategic.
Okay.
Kenny, did you?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I have a question on the report itself with, just get my foot in the door on the aquatics options here where, neither one of the options were approved because we were gonna move back to full hours
Yes, right,
as
yeah,
soon
so
as
those
possible.
were about reduction, whoa,
Yeah, so what's that,
delaying
okay,
implementation.
yeah, no, I know what they were about.
Yeah.
When do we move to the full hours on the aquatic side?
Trish? Or
no,
Craig?
Craig. Oh, Craig, sorry, you're a chipmunk and you're muted. Sorry, every once in a while, it's exactly. Craig has been working, actually Craig and Trish have been working on this for the last.
He's just
Yeah.
gonna call back in.
Answer?
Yeah.
Do you have the answer? Or he's
Well,
gonna call back in?
Or you just
I
gonna
want
make
Craig to have a
do
reason
it?
to join back, so I'll let him.
Try
There you
that
go.
on for size. Yeah, so I did a sound check at half an hour ago, thanks for telling me.
We did
Technology.
It's all good. No, so I was gonna say, Joe, I think you know the diplomatic answer to this, but we are ready to expand about 7.5 hours addition to where we're at right now, and I apologize, there was some confusion on where we were at the last time we met. But Tuesdays we are expanding. Sorry, we haven't done the media release on this, but we are talking about expanding Tuesdays very soon. So there'll be a media release coming up where we're going to expand the hours in the Creston pool, the Castlegar pool, and the Nelson pool according to what we have budget for. But for this commission, I think what we had said was we were going to go to full pre-pandemic hours, but I think when we reviewed that, we're ready to go expanded hours very soon on Tuesdays, but we're going to evaluate the sustainability of that and look at Thursdays later on in the year.
Does that answer your question?
Well, it does, but it's not the answer that we had last time. Last time it was back to pre-pandemic hours as soon as possible, we can do it. And so this doesn't make me super happy, I'm just gonna say that right now. It was my understanding that we were moving back to pre-pandemic hours, and now I hear we're not. And when were you gonna tell us?
Who's gonna?
And when is soon? When is very soon or soon?
Do we need to put this in camera? Is there something that's?
Actually, you know what? That's we could take this piece in camera if you want. I mean, I don't know if there's any anything to anchor this to, but it is that we are trying to roll out a campaign regionally, and we're not there on the campaign as far as the media release. So this is a little bit premature, but you know, to answer that question, I think the resolution kind of bound us to, and Joe and I had talked about this, the 7.5 hours, and we had done some really poor simple math, let's say, where we should have said we're expanding to 83.5 hours, and we actually only got to 75 hours. So we had capacity to go to 75 hours and not 83.5. So we probably made a promise we couldn't keep. But with the evaluation of expanding to Tuesdays, we'll be able to determine if we can go to full Thursdays later on in the year. So that's the answer to your question right now.
So what it is that the amount of hours that we can increase, there was a mistake made that thinking that those hours would equal pre-pandemic, but it doesn't. So the amount of hours that we can increase is this, as per the resolution, was 7.5, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, it was 7.5, so that is happening. But it didn't actually get us from where we were to pre-pandemic. that was the slip.
So like,
Does that make sense? Sorry, so the amount of hours, try to explain it.
So did you make is it what we're hearing, is you made a
Are
mistake
you
in
making
what you presented to
okay,
us?
That's right.
A mistake, I understand someone saying, we made a mistake.
Yeah, we made a mistake in thinking that the 7.5 hours would get us to pre-pandemic hours.
on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, so like the 7.5 is only enough to get us to full-time hours on
On Tuesdays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, cause I mean, it's not really that hard, we used to open at 6 and now we open at 2, so that's 8 hours. And so how you could get that on 2 days out of 7.5 hours,
So more to come, I'm
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
it's not
you
the
know,
answer you want, Penny, but
No, it's,
yeah.
well, at least, I mean, it's an honest answer, I
Yeah.
appreciate that, and I get that people are fallible, even Craig, so,
You're assuming I did the bad math, but I'll take the hit on that one.
it was Joe, wasn't it?
No, we're
It's
an
all right.
organization, we'll wear this.
We're not
one.
here to blame anybody.
And it isn't about blame, but, you know, here, the problem is, you know, I've been telling people, yeah, we're going back to pre-pandemic hours, Tuesday, Thursday. Turns out I shouldn't have said that, I should have just let it happen and then said, oh yeah, I knew that was gonna happen.
So phew.
It's frustrating,
Yeah, it's very
I'm quite
frustrating.
frustrated by this, I have
So
to.
when do you think this will come back to talk about Thursday opening?
No,
Couple months
sorry,
or?
through the chair, that one, it is about determining if the staff, expanded hours are sustainable and availability of everybody, and I know Joe and I had sort of said maybe the third quarter, but it is possible that if this plan, we could get to the third quarter is July. But that's what we were talking about.
Okay,
So I just,
Yeah, go ahead.
is the problem not enough staff or not enough money in the budget to pay the staff?
or-
Sorry, no, it's not, it's just making sure that we expand so that we don't have to contract in case we lose someone's availability and making that promise. And we have the same problem in Creston where we're ready to go, expand the hours on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and even open Mondays, because we've been closed here Mondays forever, almost, it feels like. But we don't wanna reopen and then have to reclose. And so we're just being a little bit cautious, let's say.
So the problem is that if there's a sudden which we've experienced, there's not enough capacity in the staffing to have any part of it fall off and get there. So the idea right now is let's get stable at this and know that it's stable. And then we can move, because what we've had, in particular, is an increase, and then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, a decrease because of an injury. Things like that have literally caused decrease in hours. So that's the part about sustainability that we're trying to get.
So we'll follow up sometime in the third quarter and see where we're at. Is that okay with? Good.
Yep.
Do I have a
I know.
choice? No,
I'm
it's
just
not
saying.
okay, and I want, no. You know what, I get it, at the same time, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was disappointed in it, cause people have been waiting an awfully long time to get back to full hours on the pool side of things, so.
No, and through the chair, both Craig and I, Tricia, we all hear you. The one piece I didn't wanna skip past was page 4.
Okay.
And just to make sure that everybody understood, that the piece was set in a way that made sense. So it's just the last 2 lines under the detailed analysis. So it's just that if the requisition had not increased at all, and everything else like that goes into what someone pays for taxes. There could have been somebody may have paid $34.23 less last year if their house was worth $500. And for S222 and S227 would be $39.02. So if you're paying into both services, it'd be around $73. So what it's saying is that those increases, another way of looking at it, is that somebody, if their house stayed relatively the same value, would be paying this year about, and they were in both services, about $73 more. So just like that was something that there was a little bit of discussion about what that was.
And that was around what we had estimated at the very first budget meeting, yeah. Any questions on this? Any questions? I just have a couple of comments and this falls from the draft budget meeting that was here at the rec center. That some people came to me and said, you know, if staff is giving you guys recommendations, why aren't you agreeing with those? Well, the recommendations are actually options that you gave us. And the options, you know, at the very start, Joe, you told us that these are options, but they have implications for next year's taxation, right? And so I just want that to be clear, that they were not recommendations, they were options, and we all voted accordingly. And then Andy had said that we didn't second one of his motions. Well, it's because we had already discussed it in the previous month and voted on that, and it was against, and he brought it up. And so it's not like we, you know, I think he said that he felt like we were blocking him, is what he said to the public, but it's not that. We already had a real thorough discussion, we voted on that subject, and it didn't move forward. And so those are things in the public, people hear, and then they speculate that we're not doing our job, but we are doing our job, and we're trying to, you know, make sure that the rec commission is working and functioning, and that the complex and the recreation resources that we have are being maintained in that. So I just wanted to clear that up.
And I think, you know, through the chair, the other thing always to remember, just so we know, like, we had a similar question in Creston. So the question was, well, what we tried to show you is that with every change, there's also a service impact.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even about what was going to happen next year, but it was also to the point of the service impact, which I did that. I'll take responsibility. A bad calculation, but that service impact is also what you're balancing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so those things are all that, in Creston, the question was, tell us what the service impact would be if there was a 0%. And we went through what that service impact was, and the committee there chose, no, we don't wanna do that. We're moving ahead with the financial plan the way it was presented. So those are always the balancing act. Unfortunately, it's not just about the dollar amount.
Yeah, exactly.
And so those are always a thing that we will try to do, is to be clear and be transparent. You know, and that is one of the reasons why when we said that, the question came back, just so we know, just to fill in the flavor of the discussion around aquatic settings. It came back, oh, we can't, with what we presented at the meeting, we can't get the full-time hours. And we don't have the staff that doesn't make that a risk. And so I said, okay, well, no matter what, that's what was approved. That's what we presented. And so we went back fundamentally to that piece. We'll own that mistake, and we're gonna look at it for the third quarter and come back. But we're never going to say something to you, tell you what that financial impact is, and then just try to make it work. We'll try to be as transparent as we can.
And I think we all appreciate that. We were just a little upset it's not happening.
No, it's okay.
We
It was,
understand, but we
It was a
understand.
little bit of an upsetting conversation at the staff level.
Andy, you have a question? Andy?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, like when, at I don't know how the city does its business because I'm not part of that. But I know how the regional district does its business. When we ask staff, is there something that you can recommend to us as an option to that could have an impact on requisition?
Oh, you're,
And
Andy,
particularly-
you may wanna, and Andy, you may wanna just turn off your video, because your video has left and you started breaking up.
Oh, okay, just hang on.
So if you turn off if you turn off your camera, your voice
Yeah,
may
just
come
give me a sec here, then I'll
Yeah.
have to turn it. Okay,
there you go. Try talking now.
is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, is that better? Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah, just, okay, so just, for those of you that haven't sat at the regional district board table for as long as some of us have, we ask staff constantly every year, is there something that you recommend that we could look at as an option for reducing reducing requisition or one-time projects? And that's what staff put together for us, and that's something that is absolutely the way we have worked forever, as long as I've been on the regional district board when it comes to budgeting. So, and we have talked about utilization of other sources of funding, like community works funds. I think this is the second or third budget where we've discussed that option. So I think for the future, where there are, I think we all have to kind of put our hats on and say, okay, no one can say that there's no lack of notice here, that in the future, I will be coming to this table and I will be making it clear and asking staff for options to say, okay, can we do some one-off stuff? And I'm going to say, let's prepare for that. And put the city on notice that, yeah, you do your taxes 6 months before we do, but I noticed other municipalities just passed their budgets, right? So all I'm saying is that I think the city now is on notice that these things will keep coming back to this table to find alternate ways of supporting through reserve funds, through community works funds, and we use community works funds and other grant funds that we have access to help reduce taxation. We do that, and we've done it all along at the regional district. So that's kind of what was frustrating, is that this is not new anymore. So that's all I'm going to say.
Penny.
Yeah, for me, although I appreciated the options that were presented, where I drew the line, I didn't want to see a decrease in service levels. In fact, I wanted us brought back up to where we were. This complex is the biggest asset that Area J has, and I don't know, probably maybe not the city, but areas I and J. It's our biggest requisition and it's our biggest asset. And so I want to see it utilized to its maximum as much as it can. Having a complex that's sitting empty makes absolutely no sense to me. So even if you can save some money by reducing services, to me that's not a good exchange and it's not something I will support.
Did you have a question?
No, good.
Okay, good. Okay, are you finished with your report? Because we'll move on to new business. Participation rates in Castlegar. Tricia?
Yeah, so through the chair, so from the All Rec meeting where we presented the draft community services financial access and inclusion policy, that conversation led to a discussion about talking about Castlegar numbers at the commission table. So in the report, what you have is actually the full report that was presented at the All Rec meeting. It's very long. and there's lots of detail, and it includes all of the attachments that were part of that discussion. So I'm thinking it might be best, and considering that you brought it forward, Sue, maybe if you had specific areas you wanted me to speak to?
I actually wanted it just to be brought forward so it's in our record,
Okay.
so that people that don't go to the All Rec Commission
Perfect.
have an opportunity to read it here. That's all I wanted to,
Okay.
just to bring it up, and just maybe an overview of what you see with the numbers, just quickly, like
Yeah,
an
absolutely.
overview like from previous years to now.
So what I'll maybe do is draw everyone's attention to, let's start with page 3. If you haven't had a chance to read this, I know you have not, you did get a chance? Okay, good.
I do my reading.
I would appreciate it if you didn't quite get through all this one. So part of the work that was done was, of course, an evaluation of what our current leisure access program uptake was within the region, as people like Andy and Director Vandenberg participated with Joe and I on the development of a new policy. So what we were able to discover was, sorry, I'm gonna back up, go back to page 2 for a second. So the first thing that we talked about was, well, where are people coming from within our existing membership of the leisure access program? And so we tried to quantify this to the best that we could based on how people apply into that program. So the numbers that might be pertinent to, of course, this group would be the very first line that talks about currently us having, so this would go from June of 2023 to end of February, which is when those dates were, or the range we took. We have 96 people participating in the Leisure Access Program, where the last full year of the Leisure Access Program, we had 61. And so obviously 2022, people were still coming out of COVID. It's not a great year to compare, but it does give us some parameters to work with. And so some of the questions that we started to ask ourselves were, okay, well, how does that compare to other major centers like Creston or Nelson and District? And you can see that Castlegar has quite a few less people participating in the Leisure Access Program. So I think it's just a point of interest. I think there's lots of things we could draw from that. It's very difficult to really decide why those numbers are the way they are, especially when you start looking at some of the supplemental materials that talk about the demographic information of the communities and really going, what's going on here? Are we promoting it enough? Do people know about it enough? Are people accessing services in different ways? You know, Director Davidoff mentioned that, you know, there's been funding that he's provided to other social service agencies that may not be creating a great number, you know, for showing uptake in our service. There could be all kinds of factors. But what it does say is to say, hey, we could do more to make sure that our hopefully partnering agencies one day down the line, or certainly through our own promotional materials, to make sure that people are aware that the Leisure Access Program exists. It does have an application process. It does take a little bit of work, but then once you're in, we're hoping that this now with a broader scope of service will be able to attract more people to participating who rightfully need the service and then can reap the benefits of participation and recreation. So maybe on page 3 might be the next one I would draw people's attention to. The charts simply show just sort of usership, so to show that really in our current program, most people use our service, use the Leisure Access Program for general admission. There's a few that obviously take advantage of it for 10-time passes, monthly passes, etc. But really our largest usage came from general admission. It will be interesting with a new scope of service, say roughly about 18 months from now, to be able to report out on what's different in a year and a half's time. The other piece that, even though it's not directly part of the Leisure Access Program, that we focused in on was the subsidies provided to golden guests and children under the age of 5. So even though it's not part of what we call the Leisure Access Program, because it is a fully subsidized service, it certainly does benefit people who may have financial hardship that may fall into those categories as well. So interesting in Castlegar, so you can see that we had, I think this is number of visits, if my memory is correct. We had 2,698 golden guest visits, and this would have been in the last full Leisure Access Program year. And I was just trying to draw parallels between like things. So this would be from 2020, June of 2022 to May of 2023, which again, may not be the perfect year to gauge because people were still coming out of COVID and a bit skeptical coming back into social environments. But even that, you can see that there's quite a difference between Nelson and Castlegar, which is very interesting. It is, it's very interesting. And so there's all kinds of things that, of course, we start asking questions about going, okay, are people being admitted properly? Are they going through our POS system in the way that they're supposed to be attended to various programs? There's a whole bunch of factors that start to play into it. Even with those potential errors, we do still think there might be a way to continue to promote some of our services, but also we think that some of the usage information is based on the type of service that we have. So for example, lots of people like to come and try to maintain health and wellness, which involves a fitness center. The fitness center is not the major attraction in this building, where it certainly is a major attraction in the other two venues. So possibly through the reimagining project, we're gonna see that fitness center space come back up to the surface and relook at what this building could do to support that service and what that then might do to participation. You know, your guess would be as good as mine at this point, but I do think there's things that we go, at minimum, we could promote that this is an opportunity for people, promote the programs that people might enjoy, that might fit into those categories. And we are also looking into our administrative processes to make sure that our data collection continues to improve and be something that we can really rely on its numbers for. It seems odd that it would be that dramatically different from those centers. Like, it's not a few hundred people.
Maria has a question.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, question through the chair. Do we know if agencies that specifically think of like child and family services, do they know about the program and how they can get their clients in there? Or I would think of family support workers through FAIR, they have the family support workers contracts. Like, have we reached out to those organizations and let them know that this is a program we have for them? Do you know in Castlegar?
So from my knowledge through the chair is that the work of staff prior to me coming on board, that definitely was work that was done. I do think that for some people there is a barrier to the application process. So I know through Director Davidoff and Director Vandenberg, this was a topic of conversation around trying to make it as seamless as possible for people so that that didn't become the reason as to why they looked for other avenues or potentially didn't participate as often as they might otherwise have if they were in the leisure access programmers, as an example. So it's kind of but part of the new policy, and you know, I know some of you heard it at the All Rec meeting, part of the new policy is to establish a network to those social service agencies that specialize in serving this clientele in all kinds of different ways well outside of recreation, so that we can actually better improve our communication to them so they can improve communication to their constituents who may circle back to our services and participate with us.
Follow up, yeah, because I can just think of probably a dozen organizations in town that would have those clienteles, like IRIS programs, both of the feeding programs in town, even the PACs, you know, in the school, making sure that they are presenting to the parents in the PACs that, you know, the schools are aware, you know, all of those things, and you may already be doing all those, but naturally kind of what comes to mind is we may need to circle back and make sure they all know.
Yep.
Excuse me.
So there'll be a plan developer, like how to reach somehow, right? Andy, you had a question?
Yeah, I just, Trish made a comment. I know when we looked at the numbers and we looked at the Castlegar numbers, I says, I wonder if somehow, I know the Castlegar District Community Services Society had approached me. I have no idea how many years it's been, how many, like over 10 years or 8 years or whatever. And they said, Andy, is there any way that you can provide us with passes for our clients to use at the complex? And I says, well, how many do you need? And, you know, what would the cost be? So I provided child passes, adult passes for their clients, and continued to, whenever they're running out or short, I would continue providing grants, and staff then would prepare the passes for them to use. So I don't know how, you know, like, did that impact the leisure access program, formal applications? I don't know. But at the end of the day, there were hundreds of passes that I paid for through other grant sources to support the clients of the Castlegar District Community Services Society.
Good. And thank you for doing that, Andy, that's a good cause.
Well, but it,
Yeah.
it,
It
I
could
think-
impact.
I think it might explain, some of the numbers that we're seeing here, cause it's really quite profound, the differences, and I think the food bank does
I was
give
just gonna bring
out,
that.
passes too, and so maybe we need to, educate those folks on the better way to, get people the services they need. I mean, I think sometimes it's just easier to give someone a pass than sit down and do the paperwork with them. Cause some people, I mean, there are literacy issues and all the rest of it, right? So I think we need to talk to our friends that are providing services and kind of educate them on a better way to do this.
Yeah, cause I knew the food bank does do that, they
Yeah.
just give out passes or whatever to their clients, and same with the shelter too, to the clients, so. Yeah, somehow we have to have some messaging to these organizations, and then even this.
So I'm on the board of the food bank. I'm happy to talk to them about that and talk about a better way to get people what they need. And using everything that's available, because the cost reduction is good. So why would, say, an area director buy passes at the full rate when you can use the leisure access rate? So I think
There goes our revenue. No, just kidding.
there goes our
But I
revenue.
understand, and that's a better way to have.
Well,
Andy,
I
do you
mean,
still have a
really,
question?
I think the food bank should be using food bank dollars for food, not for what could be a leisure access pass.
Andy, did you still have a question, or?
Your hand's still up.
If not, we're going
Yeah, let's
to,
Can I just add a couple?
yeah, you can, yeah, go ahead.
I just thought I would, just because we do have some members of the public and also for all of you to know, is that within the policy, there's 4 components to it. So it speaks a little bit to everything that everyone's just talked about, so I just thought I'd highlight it. So the first one is the revamped leisure access program, which will change, and we're gonna create a process so that we don't end up having to have people reapply in very short order, knowing that all of the current members would expire in May. We will create some form of transition to ease that burden for people. So we plan to try to implement that for September of this year. So we will keep the commission up to date as we know, and probably also keep all rec up to date just for everyone's knowledge. The other component is promotion of and the development of free and low to no cost programming. So that's kind of another reason why we're tying it to September. It comes into another leisure guide season. And so on some sort of pre-programmed way through our programming team to be able to offer services that the basic examples might be to revert back to our Looney skates or Toonie swim nights or days or times. So, and that they are planned in a way that hit a variety of demographics and that we can then track who's coming and when those times were actually successful. Not to only target those groups, but to disperse it, so it doesn't always fall on, Friday at 4 or
Yeah.
something to that effect that may not ever benefit somebody who can't come Friday at 4. You should see some promotional materials come out in the leisure guides come the fall. And then the other one in particular speaks to the developing relationships with organizations not unlike a food bank or the family action networks, or whichever those organizations may be, where they can apply to us, so we have a chance to vet those organizations and provide them a chunk of passes that we then can track and monitor who's coming to the service,
Yeah.
that they can then issue at their discretion. So if there's an emergent need with a family, or people that they think would benefit or are interested in coming to our services that might not otherwise come, this would then be their opportunity. So, but it also creates an opportunity for us to connect with them, educate them on our services, and maybe there's opportunities for us to also collect some information here for theirs. So there's a host of things that we're hoping to develop. None of that will happen overnight. It's very much a work in progress, but.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you for that, that's
You're
why. Andy, your hand's still up. Did you have a question or,
Did we miss him?
Andy, did we lose you?
Do you want me to text her?
Sure, maybe.
Teresa, can you see is Director David still connected?
From here, it looks like he is, yes.
Must be distracted by something.
Okay, well, we're gonna move on to public
Can
time.
you try texting?
I noticed that do we have one or two members of the public?
There are two members of the public. Or does it
Yeah.
usually?
At this time, if anybody from the public has a question for the rec commissioners, please unmute, state your name and your question. You have two minutes to state your question. If there's no questions, I'm going to move that this meeting be closed to the public. In the opinion of the board, in accordance with section 90 of the community charter, the public interest requires that persons other than directors, alternate directors, delegations, staff be excluded from the meeting. And further in accordance with section 90 of the community charter, that the meeting is to be closed on the basis of the following subsections. 91. So at this time, I'm going to,
I'll second it.
yeah. It's been a move